Wilson Morakes, Black Film and TV. Hi, Kate. How's it going?
Hey, nice to meet you. Hi. I'm good, thank you.
It's always good that Marvel listens to people who are wholehearted fans, and then they get the job. Because I said that to Malcolm's from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and now here you are, a Loki fan. You got the job, but then you got to do the job. And then when you watch the show, and Loki's been like a mystery throughout all the films he's done. So when you do this series, how do you try to balance what we've seen on screen to now in a series format and putting in a drama and a comedy?
Yeah, so I think for me, like, I always felt like the first episode for me is almost like a prologue, and the second episode is like kind of where his new story begins. And I think the first episode for me was really key in just setting the table for, catching up anyone that doesn't know where Loki has been or what his journey's been. And also our Loki, who's going to have a very different experience in this. And I think something that was always important to me and that I spoke to Tom a lot about was that I wanted to pay respect to the character because I think he has had one of the best stories across the MCU, and it's been so nice seeing him go from like villain to anti-hero. But this isn't the guy from Infinity War. This is the guy from Avengers, and it's like he's in a very different place. And I think for me, it was really important to kind of make sure, for one, in the first episode, we clearly see it is that Loki we knew from that film a long time ago now. And he is in a very different headspace and just where we will take him. And in terms of the drama and comedy, I think for me, it's always going to come from like emotional truth, right? Like, I think a character in a comedy doesn't necessarily know they're in a comedy. They're usually having the worst day of their life, and like, we're just enjoying it, So I think it's always for me, like, what's the emotional, realistic thing in this scene? Like, for example, like Eugene, who plays Casey, is so funny, but it's coming often from just a point that he's playing this really panicked office worker. And we've all been that guy, I think, who's like, I don't want to get fired. Like, how do I do my, and I think for me, that's the thing with the truth and the relatability of it. Like, Loki's reaction in Pompeii is funny because it's like, one, like, Pompeii was horrific, but Loki, he's got a very different POV on the whole thing because he's so excited to be there. It's like a kid on a school trip. And that's kind of like the horror and strangeness in that is almost what brings out the comedy in that situation. So I think that it was always a fine handle of balancing that, but always making sure it was story first, and then we would push it towards drama or comedy depending on the relevant emotion for the scene. So,
and then as a director, when you see the playback, and then you have to add in the animation, which is something we haven't seen before, so that's a whole different take, in terms of, okay, what side of Loki we're going to get. And then you have to mix in the other characters as well, especially Owen, because he's the one that's supposed to be like the glue for us to figure out which Loki we're going to get. So as a director, was so much, all of this a challenge. Is like being in a candy store, and now you got to take a balance as far as how to put it together.
Yeah, I think honestly, something I did, which I love doing, is we did a lot of rehearsals with the cast. And I think that really helped in terms of the balance and seeing, because obviously, like, we know Tom very well and his performance of Loki, but Owen, when he came on board, I had this amazing conversation with him, but he was like, look, I really want to do something really outside of myself and something different that people haven't seen before. And so I think in rehearsal, it was really keying into like, okay, so how do we get to that point? And obviously, as you can see, like, Owen looks completely different to what he's looked like in other films. And I think it was really just honing in on that chemistry and the status game kind of that continues throughout the show with Loki and Mobius. And I think honestly, the balance really, I think a lot of it does come from the edit, but also just making sure, like, what's the key theme of this scene? Like in episode 2, where they both talk about, like, Loki's from Asgard, Mobius is from the TVA. And for me, that almost feels like two friends discussing their different religions. And that for me was like the real key thing in that scene, was like, okay, so this is what this scene is about. So always honing in on that. And then, you can throw in a joke or improvise a line that might take it on a different track, because you might find something really interesting in that. But if it doesn't work, then you just don't put it in the movie. And if it does work, that's great. So yeah.
As I said to everybody else, watching this series, and it's going to be a weekly basis, it's like a riddle. You just got to keep seeing it to figure it all out. So keep doing your thing. I'll be watching. Have a good one.
Thank you so much. Cheers. Thank you.